Okay, right. Good afternoon. Another off lead with Stuart and Emma. And hopefully you can all see that we're joined with a special guest, should we say. The special guest, yeah, Neil Ellis is joining us. So how are we all this afternoon?
I'm good. I'm cold. My dogs are locked up, by the way, so no barking dogs.
No barking dogs today. Emma's got her dogs locked away. That's good.
Yeah, we've managed to sort of heating out. When I say that, we had a warning sign, so Ellen was like, "Oh, I fixed the heating," and I was like, "What did you do?" She said, "I just clicked reset." So now I've got heating upstairs as well. So.
Easy. Click reset. That's what we do. Right. So
we need that in life, don't we? Reset.
So thank you very much, Neil, for joining us this afternoon. Time, especially after you've been running an event this weekend. I know I attended yesterday, which was Sunday, for the Iconix 0 Degrees branch of your Iconix events. As we'll talk quickly about Iconix, I think, and we'll go with what your when you set up Iconix, what were your plans? What's your ethos with Iconix? What you're trying to achieve or wanting to achieve with Iconix?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, so the idea came to me back in, I think, 2019. Really, yeah, it was when I was sort of thinking about the idea of running shows, and I'd particularly having spent time without a dog competing in the UK and abroad. I'm someone who sort of I'm a watcher, so I often don't say much, but I like people watching, and I like how things work and why we do things in certain ways. And I for a number of years I was able to judge a lot and get an idea of how these events work in the Kennel Club run events, but also events in different countries. And I think what I tried to do is offer this perspective that what people hadn't experienced before in the UK of how agility shows are sort of ran and hosted abroad. And I think from that point of view, I think some of the things that I tried to pull is I think it's good to have international judges. I think I go to other countries because of certain reasons, if they like my courses, etc. It definitely brings a different vibe of course, and a different perspective on course design, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But I think that, and there's definitely an atmosphere around international shows. There's a lot of there's a lot of it's a very relaxed atmosphere, even though you're in a competitive environment. And I think because of this, and I'm not saying shows in this country don't have that, but there's a lot of pressure riding on a lot of shows week in, week out, because of our qualifiers, because of Champ, Olympia, not Olympia, Craft Singles. And I think sometimes we have so many rings, it's easy to lose touch with why we do agility a little bit. So I wanted to bring just a really cool, happy vibe. I wanted to bring
like a community feel to stuff, really.
Yeah, I think like you're all in this together kind of thing. You're all experiencing those same courses, and particularly the more challenging ones, you live and breathe it together, don't you, with the guys you compete with. And I think that over the last couple of years, I think we've had sort of a good response to it, probably greater than I had imagined. Genuinely, I didn't really know how it would be taken, because it was just the thoughts in my head of what I think people were asking for or wanted more of.
I feel left out because I still haven't managed to go. I had a personal problem back in August, so I still couldn't go to do your Iconix by night. And Stuart was just telling me just off camera there about the fact that he had an amazing time, hadn't he, Stuart? Yeah,
the one that we did yesterday. I mean, it's the first Iconix I've done personally. I know it was a winter one, which was a little bit different, obviously, from an indoor venue point of view.
Yeah.
But when it comes to events, the way that it was set up is how I like running events. So a normal show, like a show at a weekend, a Kennel Club show at a weekend, where it's all a little bit sort of chaotic, a little bit busy, when you're not sure where the queues are. There's like so many people in the queue, you're not sure who's queuing, who's not, what number you are, what number you're not, who's in front of you. Whereas with yesterday, it was a little bit more structured. So you had a bit more of a queuing system, you had the funnel system, which I know isn't always possible at bigger shows. And then just running in that sort of, in your strict or strictish running orders as much as you possibly can. And having the course walking time separate.
I think that's a really good thing, running in running order.
I think it should be I mean, it's difficult obviously at certain shows because if you've got 14 rings, you know, with 2,000 dogs all over the place, whatever, it's hard, isn't it, to have a strict running order in that event. But when you've got slightly less numbers and only 1 or 2 rings to concentrate on, it's a little bit easier to manage that. But I just like the whole feel of it. Was just that it was a good feel. It felt like a really good champ to me.
Thank you. Well,
and was it just grade 6 and 7 this weekend?
So grade 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
So it was just more. Yeah, I mean, while we're on that, 0 degrees was very much. I mean, I posted on social media about it today. It's very much that really does bring together. The inspiration came from, you know, I mean, my first judging appointment, I think in 2018 in Luxembourg, was one ring indoor venue. They had a bar there, they had food there, there was loads of seating area. You have 1 or 2 judges for the weekend, depending on entries, and there's music playing. And I still remember the first international dog I ever ever judged was a dog that was on its retirement run. Retirement weekend, shall I say.
Yeah.
Every single time that dog ran, it had a specific song played and the whole crowd were just clapping behind it and supporting it. And I think it went clear in like every single run. Like, it was incredible.
You're going to make me cry.
You know, but it's
what a great feeling. What a great thing to do.
And I think I really felt it, I think maybe because of the entries, but I really felt it on Saturday when we had Marco's courses, the judge from Finland. His courses were very hard, but people were really living that final run together. And when someone went clean, the place just like erupted, and it gave me goosebumps. And I was like, this is this togetherness that, of course, with these outdoor bigger shows, you might not get so much of because it's not as intimate, but in these indoor venues that are bespokely built for these sort of events, you just think this is what it's about. Like, you're there standing shoulder.
That does sound pretty amazing. Like, it's almost like the IMCA, the pause, isn't it? The para agility, where everybody gets behind the competitors, everybody gets behind each other. And did that work out for you financially? Is it? I mean, I don't go into it, but does that make it viable for you as a show organizer?
I mean, I think it's so hard because I invest so much of my own time and energy into these events, as does Ellen and Jen, and for sure and this is a quite tricky conversation, but it's a business, isn't it? You know.
Exactly that.
But I also, from my wanting to give people what they want, I'm almost like, at the moment, does that matter? It did work out financially viable, so it's great. So I won from both perspectives, and I think that's a conversation you can have for hours and hours and hours about. You know,
but I think it's important from a competitor's point of view to understand that, Stuart, we were talking about some other shows, weren't we, at the weekend, that these things have to be viable for the organisers to keep your passion alive. I mean, as you say, your passion's there at the moment, but if you were kind of like 3, 4, 5 years down the line and then the viability started to go, then we lose the show because you lose the passion.
I think, but on that point about the viability and, you know, why I ran the shows and whether they, you know, I'm able to maintain them, is that Iconix is moving now into a very really exciting phase. And I don't just mean about the dog shows and as a business it's doing really well or whatever, nothing like that, but in agility in general, we have a huge opportunity now from an education point of view. So we have a lot of competitors that are aware about nutrition in their dogs, aware about dog welfare, aware about what they put into their dogs in general, warming up, cooling down, maintenance hydro, maintenance physio, everything. And then we have a lot of people that don't know any different than maybe taking their dogs out of the car, running them, putting them back in the car. And what Iconix is slowly building, and if you told me that this would be the case or could be the case 2 years ago, I'd have laughed you out of the room. But I'm now able to facilitate, or trying to facilitate, more the education point of view. So I'm working with specific sponsors, and when I work with those sponsors, it's not just about will it work financially for us both, but it's what can you provide my competitors? How can we work together to educate my competitors in what's important for our dogs? And one of the
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the buzzwords that has come out of it is the phrase ethical agility. So one of my sponsors I spoke with on the phone threw that at me, and I was like, I was really taken back by it, because is that a thing? And it's like, well,
it should be a thing.
Probably is. So if you throw all those things together into a big ball of words and ideas, you've got this. You've got your safe course design. You've got your great equipment. You've got your wonderful venue. You've got a sponsor that's backing you and saying, well, you need to give your dog this, or you need to do this with your dog. One of my sponsors is a cage company. I know that they crash test their cages to a standard of no other, and so I want to work with them and educate people on why their cages are better than others. And it's a really exciting phase now, and we're moving into this. Okay, how can we facilitate discussions, meetings with these sponsors?
That's fantastic.
So can people can learn more about what's important. And I think Iconix is building its own platform for that. I'm not doing that. I think we're drawing the right people in, and people that are now curious, look at that perspective that I spoke about. They're now curious as to learn about why Iconix is being labeled a bit differently. And with that, it's like, well, no, it's not just about the show. It's about everything else that we advocate.
Do you also think, Neil, that some of that can also put people off?
Good question.
So you feel like some people are, let's say, wary of coming to your shows because they feel like it's, let's say, above their level, or it's not the level they're on, or it's not what they want, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it happens, but I'm biased and would be like, no, just come and you'll see. But yeah, I think like, so both of you, I mean, Emma, you said that you haven't been to one yet, and Stuart, it was your first one at the weekend. Yeah. I still get that. That's what excites me, is that we, I know for other reasons you're aware about Iconix and its benefits, etc. But we see so many people that even when I competed last weekend at a show, last week during the week, I had somebody come up to me and say, it's my first year of competing, and I've gone to an Iconix show, and I will forever come to every other Iconix show that's available. And that really hit me hard, because Emma, I know we spoke.
Go on. Sorry, how did they do that if it was grade 5 to 7?
No, sorry, during the season.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, go on, carry on.
It's because last week, not during my week show, another competition we were both at. And Emma, I know we've spoken previously about it, for either inexperienced dogs and inexperienced competitors, is it counterproductive going to Iconix? And it's like, well, no, because if they're interested enough in coming and seeing that we're putting the welfare of our dogs first, and it might get them to ask the questions about how they're training their dog, or who they're training with, and actually what they should be doing with their dog. So would it put people off, Stuart? It may do, but I think if they're interested, they should really come and see for themselves.
Because
I think that we've, put it this way, we have more finals and opportunities for we did this year anyway, for younger dogs than we did for our senior dogs.
Yeah.
So we facilitate competitions that really consider the whole picture for our dogs, or their dogs, and I think that's why I would encourage anybody that is even interested or at all considering coming, just come and see for yourself. It was labelled by one person as it's an elite competition, And I know people, I don't mind the word elite, but other people throw it around like they hate the idea, but it's not. It's what a competition should be.
Yeah.
So would you say for that it's inclusive, or would you say it's exclusive?
Oh, it's absolutely inclusive. And of course I'm biased, but if you're a grade 7 handler looking to go to international level competitions, or if you're a grade 1 handler, this is your first show, you get treated the same.
Right, yeah. Because Stuart and I were talking about this before, in the fact that it's okay to be exclusive.
Yeah.
So for instance, there's shows that only might only do small to medium, or might only do 1 to 3, and that's okay, because that's but what you're trying to do is target. Do you manage to target everybody in one show, or is that the idea of having lots of series and everything else?
I like to think that we're inclusive on all our shows. I think the beauty of it is, I think grade 7 handlers and champ handlers are more, I say they're not just grade 7 handlers, but there is a larger pool of people now that vote with their feet in terms of course design and the shows they go to, because of the quality of the organisation, everything. And those people, let's take my May show, for example. This year we had a specific final for younger dogs. So the grade 7 handlers and the people that are grade 4 to 7 generally are a bit more aware of what's best for them and their dogs. And the grade 1 to 3 handlers at the start of the year may be a bit more inquisitive about, what's this all about? Or it might be their first show. It's like, well, actually, we've got a great pool of young dogs, so let's give them their own final and say, here's your emerging talent final. Here's your opportunity to showcase why, or that you have this super cool partnership, and here's your opportunity to qualify for a final with lots of cool prizes. So I think from that point of view, because not forgetting that the grade 4 to 7 dogs are part of their own series anyway.
Yeah.
So what the grade 1 to 3 dogs don't get, the 4 to 7s get, and vice versa. So I think we've tried to be mindful of that and be inclusive. Of course, you can say, well, this weekend just gone, you were exclusive, and that's very true. And I think people were exclusive for different reasons. So I had to limit the number of grades and heights purely so that I could run a viable event indoors because of capacity levels. So you have people that do that for capacity levels. You have some people that, for example, that at the Venue Dog Sports Derby, they're exclusive in that in some days they offer some grades and heights, and other days they offer other grades and heights. I think historically other shows on the calendar that have just had, for example, I think one show just held champ, that was all they had. And I think it's a huge discussion and topic of discussion at the moment, but there's so many shows on the calendar that there is always going to be something for someone.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've said this before, haven't we, Stuart, whereby it's okay to have, as you say, for a million and one reasons, it's okay.
Yeah. So just touching back a little bit then, Neil, when you were talking a little bit about course design. So this weekend, obviously on Sunday, I competed at your Iconix 0 degrees, and the courses were, even though I didn't get around any of them, the courses themselves were, when I looked at them, I thought they were brilliant. I walked them, I thought they were brilliant, and I really wanted to do whatever, but for whatever reason, we were off our game slightly. But I sort of found, and I spoke to a couple of people there as well, and we were sort of saying, if these courses came up on a Saturday morning at another show somewhere, most people would have a heart attack. Most people would go,
what was so different about them? Why?
For me, they were fast non-stop. So they were big from one end of the arena to the other, non-stop. There wasn't one part of the course where you could let up and breathe. Whereas I tend to find, from my opinion, when we go to, let's say, another show down the road, most of the courses that we get are set almost in grids. Does that make sense? In quarters. So you have a little bit of work, then you run to the next section. You have a little bit of work, run to the next section. Have a little bit of work, run to there's a little bit of breaks in the courses generally, from what I feel, for our traditional British courses. But the courses at the weekend, literally from jump number 1 to jump 20 were
relentless. That's what British
which was brilliant. And what they did is they flowed continuously, so you didn't need a break in between.
Not meant to have a break, Stuart.
No, but you know what I mean. In the courses in our country, we tend to work really hard, and they give you a long run of 2 or 3 jumps with a break in between for another bit of work. But it's always like accelerate, brakes on, accelerate, brakes on, accelerate, brakes on. Whereas these courses the weekend was just accelerate. You didn't have to put your brakes on. You didn't have to, like, the dogs didn't have to do anything physically that was too demanding in that way. But everything was on their sort of within their parameters.
So what does make, when we talk about good course design, what does that mean to you, Neil? What does a good course design mean to you?
I mean, yes, Stuart, your point's really interesting. Is that sort of way of analysing how courses are set up is quite interesting, because it's something that you're right. You have either portioned courses that are a bit, I don't know. I'm going to give you an insight into my head works here, but they're not very weighted that well. Yeah. What I mean by that is they're just quite imbalanced. So there's not a fair distribution of skills across the whole course. So that's a really good point. And the second one I would add to that is another theme we see is either one really hard thing or one area of course, and then the rest is just boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So why does that happen? I think. Well, I mean, the big problem is course education for judges that is just not okay. So it's not judges' faults a lot of the time. They've not been brought up, or they've not been educated correctly on what course design is or should be about. But from my specific perspective on what course design should be, let's just take Marcos for an example. The reason why his course was quite fast and therefore quite hard is that most of the interactions dog had with obstacles were either on a slice line, on a backside, or a threadle, so a pull in or a backside in which the dogs had to not collect but extend. So a lot of the jumps the dogs were heading towards were on extension as opposed to collection, and that's his theme. So if you looked at his courses, he had quite a few backsides that were on slice and threadle. So a lot of the time he had the jumps or the course that was all on one hand. But I think what made his courses good and what makes course design good is appreciation for lead leg in dogs, which I'm sure people are heard about, but where you accommodate natural lead leg changes in the dog, so you're not asking for forced lead leg.
So again, you're talking about safety and welfare.
Correct. Yeah. I like a course that is spread out. So people always rib me and laugh at me for using every ounce of the space, like Marco did this weekend. And what that allows is it doesn't dampen the skill that you're expecting the dog to do, but it gives every opportunity for the dog to sort itself out.
Yeah.
So if you've got a 7 or 8 meter distance and it, I don't know, twists a little bit off a jump or is moving at speed, you give it every opportunity to actually give that skill a go. And I think what the problem we have is that some of our courses we get, and I actually think this is something to do with the ring space we get, dogs don't have enough chance. Dogs don't have enough chance to even sort their bodies out.
Yeah.
They're moving, the larger dog, or even the smaller dogs that are moving at such great speeds, haven't got, sometimes the line is just, they physically cannot achieve the ideal line.
Yeah. Yeah, because our ring size is, because we're very square, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think it just doesn't really work. And
the other thing that Stuart said that you achieved this weekend was doing small to mediums one day and larges and intermediates the next day. Was that right?
Yeah, so they split that.
And I think that makes a massive difference. I've run my small dogs around a big course, and my dogs had to run full extension all the time, which, again, just tests its basic stamina, basically. And most of the small dogs were exhausted and were making mistakes because of that, because they were running 8 to 10 meters flat out all the time, because it was set for large dogs and the skills were at large dogs, and then we ran it over small. But so I think even by doing it on 2 separate days, but shall we say, run-of-the-mill kennel club shows, as you say, particularly winter shows now that we're going to, they don't have that room, do they? And they don't have the luxury. Sometimes some shows still do it, especially I've got a couple around here, but they don't have the luxury of numbers of doing small and medium one day and large on another, because I do think it does work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Really, that's a good point. And I think, yeah, if you look at how dogs move, yeah, for sure, the split of small medium against intermediate large is ideal. And yeah, so what you have is these you have a balance of a course, so a course that has balanced skills throughout the course. Now, for sure, the number of skill levels for a higher graded dog is going to be more, which is fine. But even for your lower grade, so for example, I think I've been competing, and at Dog Sports Derby again, they're facilitating these wandering shows. The judges that are there are allowing dogs to still open up, but they're still offering skills that I would expect for a 3 to 5 dog, because that's what my dog is, which includes threadles and backsides. But there's only 1 or 2 per course. Sometimes it is a backside, but it's very much on the natural line of the dog. So you can offer skills that are on the natural line. It just makes the skill easier. So we know, like, if you look at backsides with really acute angled approaches, the dogs has to seek the wing on their own. We see threadles in which handlers have to be moving across the wing. That creates that degree of difficulty. So course design is all about the speed element combined with the handler movement and the level of, or the number of skills presented at the dog throughout the course. And I think that's where education in judges has let them down. Yeah. And if you were to ask me why, well, I think the first thing is our course measuring system asks judges to only appreciate the distances between obstacles as opposed to what the impact on the dog's line actually is. So if you see these judges that, because they're taught that way, to look at the measure and make sure that they're minimum 5 meters. And so there's no remeasure to make sure that the dog's line is achieved. And so there's no appreciation for how dogs move as much. I'm not saying the judge doesn't know that, but in that instance at a kennel club show, they're just expected to make sure that one obstacle is this further away than the other.
Do you think it would be good, I know UKA did this, to standardise, like say for instance, grade 1 or 2, you're only allowed like 2 changes of direction, on grade 3. Do you know what I mean? Do you think it would be good to standardise it, because we lose the creativity?
You lose the creativity, but also it's not that simple. Because you can, like, if, for example, doing a nice soft blind on a cert line, to get the dog to go tunnel, jump, tunnel, for example, and maybe have to do a front cross out of that onto a jump, that's your 2 changes of side. Yeah, all you've done is create a nice cert line into a front cross, which for a younger graded dog is like a collection point, I call them. It's like a meet point, so that you're not always, because what we do is people have tried to make courses easier, but they make the dogs go 1,000,000 miles an hour, so actually make them harder. So yeah, just within 4 obstacles, I've given you what could be a really nice, soft, like really nice, appropriate line, but then apparently they've met their quota. Yeah. And then everything else. And it doesn't add up.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think what needs to happen is we need to focus more on judges' education and giving people the opportunity to understand more about how dogs move in course design.
Do you think that's happening, Neil?
No.
So,
I'm part of a group of 4 people that are doing some free seminars over the winter and into the new year. I'm sure people were aware of it, called Love the Lines. And but I think that only can do so much.
And where do people find that? Because I wasn't aware of that.
So it's called Love the Lines. I think it's on all of our, it's myself, Martin Reed, Becky Hodson, Dave Munnings, and hosted by Dan Shaw. We essentially were asked by Dan to be part of this group of, so there's 4 presenters that are at 3 different venues over the winter, 2 in December and 1 in February, I think. And we give our perspective and our opinions and thoughts on
Love it.
lead leg change, safety in tunnel, safety in course design, how you can correct small, if you've got a course set up, how can you troubleshoot quickly to make something work. I've got a bit of a presentation on contact approaches. So yeah, it's tragic in some ways, but it's also really super cool because we've got these people that are now really. So Dan was one of these people that said, right, what can we do? Because we see in a number of different times, or at least once a weekend, let's be honest, where something's unsafe for a dog. Approach to a contact, a not so nice line, a minimum distance, thread or combination of things. Sadly we see it all the way up to champ level as well, where we see like a 16-meter run onto an A-frame or unsafe approaches, and that really is where we can start causing difficulties, because whether the champ judges like it or not, they are advocates for the best course design in the UK.
I think that's the same. I know, are we a sport, aren't we a sport? But I think that's the same with any sport, isn't it? So like Premiership football, if they start doing one particular skill, it's going to feed down into the grassroots.
Exactly. It trickles down.
And
isn't it funny how they a lot of this research, again a bit of a different topic, but a lot of the research and the data gathering is done at a high level and then is trickled down. So let's look at like heading in football, for example. Now young children have been banned from heading in their league. And then also not encouraged. I think there was something else said about heading, and the day before or after, you shouldn't head a ball after a match or something. And so it sort of trickles down. And so what happens is it, without really realizing it, we influence course design positively or negatively. So yeah, what can be done? Well, we've got this Love the Lines program, which unfortunately it's sold out now, but I think we are going to be filming it to put online. So
I love it. I think you should.
I think it's
a great idea.
Yeah, but I think what needs to happen, and I'm really super passionate to be involved in, is to totally relook at the judges education program. So again, just because it's fresh in my mind, but it's not the first example, but Marco, who is over here from Finland, his girlfriend is on her final assessment weekend next weekend to become a judge, and an assessment weekend is exactly that. So they have to judge a license competition in Finland. They are given a course design, so with a dog walk in the A-frame in a certain position, and they have to create a course around that. They have to set the course and measure it and have it ready for walking in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And even if they breach that 20 minutes, they fail. And they lose 18 months of work, because it takes 18 months to become a judge. But at the moment, what's happening is that we have this large pool of shows in the UK, so we need the judges for the shows. So what we do is we've got an education program which takes 2 days, because we want to go, no, we need judges, let's get judges through. And we have judges that are deciding not to judge anymore because of online abuse and what have you, which is again a bit of a different topic, but it's a cause of this need for more judges. But we're not addressing the issue in the first place, which is why have we got so many? And why are we allowing so many shows to take place? So we need to. I call it. We need to stem this introduction of new judges and say, well, look, what can we do to help the judges we have, and what can we do with the future judges? We need to slow things down and give them proper education. So, it's certainly something that is on everyone's mind, isn't it? Course design, and I think it's a very hard situation. I think people are trying now to offer themselves up as mentors and provide their support and experience to others, which is really, really great. But yeah, I think we need to do a little bit more on a mass scale to really help these judges that
I definitely agree that we need to limit the amount of shows that we're running. I know that's sort of, for some people it's their living and that's how they do make their living, but I just think there's far too many events on any given weekend now.
I'm not sure you can do that though.
I know, but it's just but what I'm saying is
places like Sweden only allow so many, they only issue so many.
I'm pretty convinced, and I'm not sure whether it still happens now, but I was pretty convinced years ago that the Kennel Club would only issue a show license if the show was in a certain mileage.
Yes.
I'm sure I may be completely wrong, but I'm convinced it was a thing where you couldn't have a show within, let's say, 30 miles of another show. Whether that still happens now, I don't know.
That's your homework.
I would argue not. Just based on
maybe
how many
we could
events I
get
know that are local to me.
Representative.
How many events that are local to me through the summer? I would say that doesn't happen.
Yeah, so
I think don't know any local. Well, I do. Now I've moved. But
I'm pretty convinced. I'm pretty convinced there used to be.
I think you're right. I'm not license sure if Champ. I don't know whether it was just Champ or whether it. No, I think you're right. I do recall something.
Used to be a rule.
Whether it's still there or whether it's still
right. I remember that because COVID's done a lot of interesting things with agility. So we've seen less. We've seen a huge drop in typical entries, and I think most show organisers I speak to, even the premier events of the year, the champ events, have said their entries are lower. But couple that with more licenses from like businesses, and I'm one of those people. But I think what we see is the number of competitors is diluted because there's so many opportunities to go to different shows. So I can't.
And then you need more judges, and then you need more education, and then and that spiral goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is, and we could talk.
Yeah, we could talk about it forever. But what I do want to know before we go anywhere else is what's your plans now for Iconix? Just quickly, what are your next? Have you got any big plans that you can talk about or anything?
So I've recently announced that I'll be hosting the Border Collie Classic, which is sort of, it's tagged as the European Championships for Border Collies. So that was hosted here in 2014.
Yeah,
that's coming back.
I came 9th.
Exciting.
I came 9th overall. Yeah,
love that. Good work. I remember I don't know what I was doing, but
I don't have a Border Collie. My
wife went to that competition. I can't remember where I was. Maybe I was at uni or something because it was quite a few years ago. Yeah, I was actually. So maybe I just didn't go. So it's coming back. So that for me is a good opportunity to bring in a lot of international competitors. So for sure, that for me is quite exciting. And because I've had the international judges come over, people are beginning to talk about the Iconix shows and they would love to attend. And I think I'm very lucky that a lot of these judges I know are friends as well as judges. So it builds this hype and they want to come over and as competitors as well. And I go to their competitions as well. So it's quite reciprocal, which is really great. So that's going to be for me an opportunity to present Iconix on an international level, and then I hope to have sort of in the next 3 years an international open every year. So that'll be added to the calendar. So I will probably stick to my 3 shows that I have that form part of the series. I'm looking to make a few different changes to the series. I won't say much, but looking at doing a team event at one of the competitions, like we see at the EO finals, as an idea. And every year now, from after the Border Collie Classic, I look to have an international open, because we see these big competitions in Germany and Slovenia. Well, I think every single country has an open, and they're just super cool. And I think with that brings that competitive level up. And people that I speak to that come to the Iconix shows, that they really enjoy the challenge of the international courses and competing against those that are of international level here in this country. And even yesterday over the weekend, people were telling me about they're competing alongside those that are of the highest caliber in this country. And I think that's really exciting because it's not like it's a genuine appreciation for who they're stepping on the line against.
Yeah.
And that gives that people that excitement of, oh, come on, let's give it a go against those people. And it forms part of my slogan, you know, compete alongside the best, fulfill your dreams and exceed your expectations. And that's what I want everybody to do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And we wish you luck.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will make it to an Iconix show, I promise.
Otherwise I'll start questioning really whether you want to come at all.
Yeah, I want a tunnel.
Yeah. Right. So thank you very much.
There's not a tunnel up for grabs.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you very much for joining us, Neil. We appreciate you spending your time in that. And yeah, definitely from anybody that's obviously watching or listening to this, I believe that Iconix is a must. Even if you only go once, you've got to go. It was a good venue, a good event. I liked it. Everything about it was cool. So if you can get on one, especially that I haven't been to a summer one yet, so I'll be definitely onto that.
Summer seems so long ago.
I know, yeah.
Bring back summer.
I know. Well, I really appreciate having me on. I don't often get to chat about these topics, you know, about course design and about Iconix. So I really, really appreciate it. So thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Right. We'll leave it at that one, I think. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.